Mon bonheur dès que je serai coupable, si je cherchais qui vont dans cet endroit. Mais mon cœur dès que je suis excusable, si c'est Guillaume qui t'amour aperçoit. Sur ce dansant comme elle est dans son aise, et c'est Guillaume pour lui c'est là, s'il était là, s'il était là, Thérèse. Ah, c'est des mots, tu ne t'oublierais pas. Ah, c'est des mots, tu ne t'oublierais pas. Guillaume, Guillaume, que ce nom m'intéresse, heureusement qu'on ne peut m'écouter. Pardon l'excès de ma vive tendresse, je ne sais pas à trop le répéter. Si vous savez que Guillaume me plaît, tout le monde me ferait oublier. Non, parlons pas, et pour plus de mystère, contentons-nous s'il se peut d'en rêver. Contentons-nous s'il se peut d'en
All right, and we are back, everyone. Welcome back. This episode is the first of 3 episodes of our Anonymous Lover Joseph Boulogne extravaganza. And we're super excited because, I mean, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first time that Minnesota Opera is producing an opera by a Black composer, which is amazing. And it's also amazing that this is the first time that we are back in production at the Ordway up on stage since March 2020. It's so exciting. But the Anonymous Lover is going to open this Saturday, and we are here joined by 2 guests who are here to talk about the production, get everyone hyped and excited for it. First, we have the director, Maria Todaro. She is not simply just a stage director. She is a versatile artist. She is an entrepreneur, a fight choreographer, stunt artist, writer, director. She has worked in places all around the country. She made her US stage directing debut in 2015 at the Westfield Symphony Orchestra. She has worked at Michigan Opera Theater, South Dakota Symphony Orchestra, all sorts of places. Right now, she is the general director as well as the founder of the Phoenicia International Festival of Voice. And
mouthful, isn't it?
And one thing that I just found fascinating is you specialize in virtual reality directing. Is that?
Yeah, it's a thing that happened, with COVID. We had to find other avenues, and all of a sudden you met, you connecting with new partners in the world of opera. We had no choice. We had to expand, or and so we had to think out of the box. But this, well, I'm here for, and this project is way more exciting than get involved. Seriously, this is like we creating history here, guys, and I couldn't be more thrilled to talk about it, and more grateful for Minnesota Opera to have reopened, taking this risk, taking that, taking this composer, taking me, bigger risk, and giving us the opportunity to tell the story of that, a little bit of that guy.
Well, we are super excited to have you here. We cannot, I think I speak for everyone when I say we can't wait to see the show. But also we have here coach, musician, and incredible brand new vice president of artistic here at Minnesota Opera, Mr. Joseph Lee. Welcome to what I would imagine is your first of many appearances on the score.
Well, I certainly hope so.
Well, let's get right into it. The Anonymous Lover. I think it is a piece that perhaps not a lot of people know about, but hopefully a lot more people will know about it after this weekend. But can you, Maria, just maybe tell us a little bit about the show? What is it about? And who is it by?
Yeah, so absolutely, with great pleasure. This is the Anonymous Lover, L'Amant Anonyme, is a piece that is composed in the gallant styles, which is a very, very light, bubbly, joyous. It's a comedy, right? It's a comedy of 90 minutes that have ballet, that have all kinds of explosion of joy. And the script is, all the Frenchness and all the amorous secrecy and all the intrigues of people that it's very French, all that side. It's very court. It was very prized at the court of Marie Antoinette, and the French Revolution when everything went. But this was like the bubbles, and so there's a lot of light, lots of joy in the play, which is very interesting for the composer. So many things to say. The composer himself, Joseph Bologne, is not, it's we can't judge the immensity and this like almost superhero like life that he had based on that 90 minutes ditty, because the 90 minutes, it's a bubble of joy, it's like a little, but his life, my gosh, was an opera itself, and the fact that the segregation he faced, and despite segregation, being a superstar of his time, a counselor of the king and the queen, meeting every single big personality of the 18th century, Casanova, Mozart. He influenced greatly Mozart, and not the opposite. Mozart was only 12 when he met Bologne, and have been in his music completely inspired by him. And the Chevalier d'Éon, William Wilberforce, was someone that completely went behind Bologne, and actually this whole, how the superstardom started for. He was a superstar at this time, and it started with this man overachieving and being excellent at everything he touched, because he knew that this was the only way for him, because of the color of his skin, because of his heritage, and he was excellent at everything he touched. He led 2 regiments. I mean, I'm saying this almost with rage, because it's incredible. We talk about Mozart and all this composition, but if Bologne had not been busy saving the world, maybe we would have had more work from him, like Mozart, who was partying, and nothing against Mozart, I love Mozart, but Mozart was composing and partying, while this guy was building 2 regiments of black people, fighting 2 revolutions, working with abolitionists, composing, being a fencer, being a politician, being a defender of so many things, plus dealing with the segregation on him. Like, you couldn't marry at the time when you're a black man, you couldn't wear certain colors, you couldn't own properties, and despite all this, he flirted with everybody that had a brain and talent at the time. And despite the hardship, because when the French Revolution came, he was also tossed in jail, which was like, what? But it's so funny, because he was the friend of the Duke d'Orléans, who was one of the main defensor of equality at the time, and wanted, one of the initiator of the French Revolution, who's also guillotine, boom, died, one of the first to be eliminated. But Bologne, why would they put this man in jail, But because he flirted with aristocracy. This is how the people... So there's so much. And I know I'm digressing from the actual story of the opera we're presenting, but I would like the audience to understand that this is it's a little bubble of joy, but this is a pretext to actually talk about the composer, talk about his life, talk about his accomplishment. And unfortunately for us, he has composed 6 operas, and this is the only one we got, plus 1 piece from another one. And I like to, because of the lightness, and when you listen to his concerto violin, he was a virtuoso violin, and Joseph can talk more about all this, of course, but he was a virtuoso violin. So violinists of today, when they look at his music, they tremble and sweat. They like, oh my gosh, it's difficult for the way the hand is traveling, ups and downs on the violin. it takes someone of his virtuosity level. His concertos violin music is divine and profound and very avant-garde for the time. This opera is really, once again, we're treating it, the whole concept behind it is really to render an homage to Bologna. So we set it in an island that looks like Guadeloupe because it was his birthplace. So I hope the audience would love the colors and love the palm trees and love the wind and the curtain. And I'm still, if I had been able to, I would have had flying parrots on stage, but we can't. And Harry, our costume designer, would not be very happy, with the silk and all the beautiful material fabrics she's putting on stage. So no live parrot, but the audience will completely picture and imagine them. So it's kind of in a Caribbean island in the 18th century with a little bit of, liberty into the anachronism, just to connect us a little more deeply with the text from the 18th century. So we had to, while respecting completely the text, which is, by the way, written by a woman, Stéphanie Félicité de Genlis, another crazy thing, for the time, and another person also who had a very complex life and was a dear friend of Bologna at the time. So it's really fascinating that we have this opportunity not only to reopen the opera, as you said, to present the work of a Black composer, but it's not just any Black composer. This is a guy who has been in the shadow for many years unfairly and deserves to be celebrated at the highest level and at the highest level of many composers. So hopefully this is what our presentation will do, not only entertain the audience that comes and see all the fireworks that we're putting everywhere and the comical. It's really meant to be a joyful explosion, and in the cold of Minnesota, in February.
We need it.
Yeah, so hopefully this is gonna be, but also, and I hope, I pray that this is gonna also trigger many curiosities about who was Joseph Bologne, and many more of his celebration like this. I did all this in one breath, guys. That was a lot of talk.
And it was really fantastic, Maria. Thank you for that. And I was hoping we would find a way to sort of bring in that connection to William Wilberforce into the conversation, because he's primarily known in the United States as having given his name to one of our oldest historically Black universities. So I think people hearing that there's a connection there too will be of real interest. I have a question for you as well, Joseph. Could you say a little bit about why the Anonymous Lover and why now, and maybe the ways that this is giving us the opportunity to put into practice our statement of artistic belief in our diversity charter?
Right. So Minnesota Opera's stated vision is to sing every story. And as Maria pointed out, this is the first opera we're producing by a Black composer, and so we have not sung every story, have we? And so this is absolutely the story that we want to tell, and now it's more than ever. One of the things that originally inspired me from listening to the early episodes of the score was this desire, this longing for artistic expressions of PBJ, pure Black joy. And while this, this is kind of, I feel like, a first meager offering to that plate that we so long for, and to offer it in this light spirit that Maria is talking about, that she's putting into her work with the artists, the humor, the humanity, the dancing, the singing, the virtuosity of the orchestra. This is all part of what we need to be telling right now. And another thing Maria mentioned was, about how COVID's gotten in our face. over the past couple of years and gotten in the way of things that we're doing. I feel like this is us getting in COVID's face a little bit. It's taking a lot of effort, but it's an effort well worth it, in my opinion.
Well, get in COVID's face, but make sure you have a mask on first.
And be vaccinated too.
Yes. And boosted.
Yeah.
And boosted. Yep.
Yeah, with some precautions, with some protections, right? Maria, I think you like alluded to this a bit in what you were saying. There was just so much richness. So I wonder if you could talk more about what how Boulogne is viewed in France. Like, what is his legacy among the people and in French history? Like, is his name heard? Is it spoken everywhere? Like, is it commonly taught?
No, no, and that is like an absolute shock to me, because really, and again, one of the things that I'm super grateful is like Minnesota Opera taught me about my own French history by bringing this project in front of me. That's ridiculous. I discovered then that yes, 2 books have been written about him, but it's obscurely known, you know. It's not no, it's not common knowledge that we had this Black composer, and that is one of the things that I hope to repair. And I'm gonna go on a real passionate quest here. I don't want to use the word crusade because that's like what, but you know, I'm that's a little bit of a desire of mine to go back to my country and say hello. Riches here, you know, celebration. And he has a street in Paris where there's a plate with his name, you know, so it's not completely, and he's quoted, I mean, he's quoted by people in passing, and he's quoted a little bit by everybody important because, again, he was the only one that has that status, a man of color, you know, that status at the court of Versailles. So he was remarked, he was noted. But no, I mean, we have not, to answer your question, no, there's not enough. There's really not enough. But you'll see in the show, I don't want to give all the secrets to our audience because you gotta come and you gotta have fun and see all the little bubbles that we put for you. But there's gonna be quoted French quotes of, you know, John Adams, for instance, is quoting. There's a wonderful quote by John Adams about Boulogne that you'll read it. Come to the show, you'll read it. And there's all kinds of quotes also from very famous people. But I'm I'm disappointed that people don't know about him. This is why for the first time a lot of ideas came when you read the play. You could set it in, it's a universal play, so the opera itself, right? You could set it in any time, this is one motivation also, to respect the time period of the composer and setting it in his birthplace, eluded birthplace. And it was important. That's part of telling the story of Boulogne, you know. That's part of the illustration of his life, even if the opera does not talk about something directly connected to his life. There's a lot of elements, like the fencing. There's no reason to have a fight in this fantastic love play, but we put a little bit of fencing just to make a wink at the fact that his career and notoriety started with this. You were talking about Wilberforce earlier. We were talking about this, and that started. This entire notoriety started with the fencing and started with, the abolitionists very quickly understood they had like someone that could be the spokesperson, and they could be all behind him. So, and he was only 17 when he defeated one of the greatest. Alex Picard was the French guy, the superstar of fencing of the time in France, who called him. I don't want to say the word here, but it's not a good word, and it was offensive to Boulogne. So Boulogne say, you and me, we're fighting. and he won. Boulogne who worked so hard at everything he did. This is also why it's so important to be told for me, is that, you know, it's inspiring. He worked, he got, you know, and it's not that we work, we got, that's not the formula, of course, but this is a success story despite everything. The stuff this man has touched in his living and the influence he had on his living, you know, while he was with us. And now we you know, finally giving him recognition, but he has changed lives during his own life, and so that has to be voiced a lot for me, because I think we do need this encouragement on a daily basis, and specifically in certain communities, as you defend them, and you know that. I like to celebrate the positive, you know, instead of dwelling in the thing that we know didn't work. I like that this life is one that really worked, you know, and celebrate that life.
Can I pose a question to the group, if you will? One of the things that Maria said about, just kind of casually in passing, when she was talking about all the things that Boulogne did, leading regiments, being an expert at everything he did, she said something like, "It fills me with rage just thinking about it." And I thought, yes, you know, we all have this kind of like, oh my gosh, we know people in our lives who are good at everything. Like, it makes us so upset. But I also wonder on another level, imagining somebody that good at what they were doing, as many people of this kind are, that they encounter resistance because of that. They encounter insecure colleagues, insecure people around them who are threatened by somebody like Boulogne, who would have been so much better at what he did than most of the people, almost all the people around him, probably. So I wanted to know, you know, what you all thought of that, of being a possibility. This is completely just speculation on my end. I expect from what I have read that this is probably true. But what do you all think?
You know, there is a statement that many folks of color grow up hearing around, if you want to get half as much as your white counterparts, you have to be twice as good, right? And I think that there is something very, very real about that. And as, you know, democratizing as the arts can be, I think it's something that shows up very frequently. And I'll just say really briefly, 2 nights ago, my husband and I were watching The Tragedy of Macbeth, starring Denzel Washington, right? And among other reactions to it, we were both kind of blown away at being reminded how good Denzel Washington is and how extraordinary his range of skill is relative to kind of every
Yeah.
other living male who is acting at the moment. And, you know, I think this kind of connects, right? You know, whether you're thinking of someone like Maya Angelou recently on The Quarter, the number of things that she excelled at in her life beyond poetry, dancing, singing, you know, acting, all of that. And I think that it's almost common among Black artists to have those kinds of profiles and still never attain what your white counterparts do. And I think that's part of what we have to counteract in this space. But Paige and Rocky, I'd love to hear your perspectives too.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of as Lee said about that, you know, phrase that we're all taught, you know, growing up, that, you know, you have to get half as much, you have to be twice as good. And I mean, I think along with that, I was also just trained with the knowledge that there will be eyes on you that are that are jealous, or who, whether they admit it or not, have internalized that you're supposed to be lesser than. You know, they've internalized that as a brown skinned person, like, wait, you're not supposed to shine like that. Like, you're not supposed to be smarter than me, or you're not supposed to make me feel like I'm not as smart as you or not as brilliant as you. And people act out in all kinds of ways when they have, you know, that feeling. And yeah, I was just kind of taught that that was also a fact of the matter. So I'm absolutely sure that the Chevalier faced that. I'm just sure of it. And it's unfortunate, but I think the more we can call attention to it as well, like those who want to rectify it also can see when that's happening in a space, and when that's been part of somebody's even, you know, retroactively, like now, even when that's been part of the legacy, and, you know, why we're not hearing of this person, because that's the kind of attitude that prevails. And hopefully we can disrupt it now when it's happening in the present.
Yeah, I was having a conversation once with someone a few years ago, and I was saying that like it's really interesting because, you know, as you know, a Black person, a Black artist especially, you know, you can go into spaces, you can be smart, you can be capable, you can be hot, you can be funny, you can be cool, but it's very rare that you can be in a space where you can be all of those things at once. And so it's just this very sort of careful calculus that you're doing in your head. Like, well, which parts of myself do I need to sort of dim in order to make this person feel comfortable, or in order to sort of get myself to the place where I want to be? And it's just so heartening to hear this story of this man who just kind of went into these spaces and just went like, I'm gonna be me. And I'm gonna do whatever the F I want to do, and y'all are gonna deal with it, and y'all are just gonna be mad. Because I think I've told this story before on the podcast, but having a teacher who wanted to fail me because I, you know, kind of stood up for myself and stood up for, you know, what I believed in his class, and he did not like that. And so he was trying to give me, you know, an F. And so I just went, you know what, I'm just going to shine even brighter so that you have no choice but to give me, you know, an A or a passing grade or whatever. And so it's just really heartening that we are putting this piece on the stage, and we're highlighting this man and his life and his incredible accomplishments. And I just hope that, you know, especially folks of color, especially Black folks who come to see this show, get to see his work and get to read about his life and get to listen to our show for the next couple of weeks, hopefully, you know, and continue to get inspired, because, you know, that's really what great art does, is, you know, allows everyone to sort of inspire and be inspired and dream.
Now, you guys have given us a great opportunity to create food for thoughts and create that healing inspiration that we will give to the audience, hopefully. And to the artist also, it's so, I mean, just a little pitch for the audience and the people that will listen to us. This is really history that we're making. We're adding 2 pieces of music that were not part of the score. There's been little tweaks of motivation of the characters. So this piece not only has rarely been heard in the history of the piece itself, but now it's never been heard the way it will be presented here, you know. So this is making history altogether too, as we honoring the originator of that music. I'm so, I don't like to say I'm humbled and all that stuff, but I really mean it. I'm really humbled by this particular project, you know. It is a privilege to be serving a guy like Bologna. And yeah, it's special. I think all the actors, the wonderful performers we have, and Maestro Joseph, and I think everybody, and the choreographer, the fantastic choreographer we have. So because it's, you know, 18th century music, but we're setting in the Caribbean, oh, the audience is gonna travel with us. We're gonna have a wonderful travel in the island because we have a Jenan Saint-Just. She's an Haitian choreographer.
Yes.
Do you know her?
She is amazing.
She's amazing.
I am such a fan. I'm such a fan.
God. She's amazing, and I adore. It's like we knew each other forever. And she's and Jennifer Mako. So we have 2 choreographers that are helping me setting a very interesting mix of the 18th century traditional, dance and the wah of the current. And this is all I'm gonna say, but there's a lot of wah in there, a lot of it. So it's fun to learn those things also.
Are there unique opportunities that come with presenting a work that is generally unfamiliar to audiences? Are you able to make different kinds of decisions from a casting or a directorial standpoint than you would if you were, doing Carmen, for instance, right? Which is something that's sort of lodged permanently into the Western psyche in a way that we just don't know the Anonymous Lover yet.
Absolutely. From the casting perspective, I think one of the uphill battles I feel like we're fighting is the idea that there really are only certain voices and only certain personalities for roles. We have what we call the Fach system, where we go, oh, this person has a certain voice, therefore they cannot do these roles, but they can do these. And I am scandalously against that for the most part. Yes, you don't want to put someone in a role that they can't sing. That's not going to do anyone any good. But with a piece like Anonymous Lover, we have a chance to expand people's perceptions of what voices, what personalities, what people can fill these roles, because we don't have a preconceived notion of this is not Rodolfo or Mimi and Bohème. This is something we have more opened minds to naturally, and also from an orchestral perspective as well. There's a lot of fun that can be had with this score, and that Bellone himself, I would say, wrote into the score. But actually, the more fun about it is that he didn't write a lot into the score, because he was leading it from the violin. There's a lot of notes, dynamics, details missing, because he would have just done them naturally, almost on the spot, probably changing from performance to performance, because he was that good and that much of a virtuoso. So there's a lot from the instrumental perspective that can be done. Ornaments for the singers as well. I'm going to go down just a rabbit hole of music nerddom, which I usually like to do. So apologize for that, but there it is. So yes, possibilities galore.
Yeah, we talked a lot at rehearsal between Maestro Christopher Franklin, Joseph, and the music staff, and the production staff. It has felt like a creation a little bit, like, we would, the same attitude we have with a new work is the approach, but it's not a new work, but it has been approached a little bit like this, because there's a lot of connecting the dots work, injecting like Joseph said, all those ornaments, all those the dynamics, the nuances. This takes a real knowledge of the style of the time to be able to reproduce an environment of that music, and the text, the delivery also of the text, that we're not necessarily accustomed anymore to do. So it took some expertise, and thank God we have an amazing team of experts musically, and Joseph is certainly part of this also, as he's wearing 20 million hats in the company. But so this has been also a very collaborative on a new approach way, I would say, the different way that we would. I mean, it should be also with a Carmen or a Bohème, it should be a collaborative work. But I would say that this work has been a particularly built to embrace collaboration.
One thing that I was just curious about, since we're talking about, sort of innovation and collaboration, obviously we are living through a global pandemic right now. And this is the first, like I said at the beginning, the first opera that we are mounting on the stage in the Ordway for the first time since, March, February 2020. So I'm just curious, what is different now 2 years later when it comes to producing an opera for the stage? What have you found that is that's new, that's crazy, and how do you feel like it's all going. I guess masks,
You know,
exactly.
yeah, that's a little different
Yeah.
because half of the expression of the artist.
Yeah.
So it would be, well, if they're making it work with just this, imagine when we're gonna have all that. So it's
Mhm.
gotta be bonus for me. So I'm happy. It cannot be, yeah, contradictory. So that's different. Joseph, what do you think?
I think the expectations are the biggest difference of making art in a post or current pandemic world. Expectations of what is possible, both expanded and not. The mask thing that you bring up, Maria, is huge. I cannot imagine doing this as a singer. Honestly, the way that I try to describe this to other people, especially other pianists who, we as coaches, we use our ears all the time. We're supposed to be the pickiest of the picky in terms of what we hear from a singer. But I describe this as, well, what if you had to play rehearsals for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, wearing mittens or wearing gloves? How would you
That's a good
feel
one.
about, maybe you could manage that for a week, but after a week, wouldn't it start to kind of pull on your soul a little bit, not being able to bring the full force of what you can do to bear? And I think that the expectations that we have of our artists and in particular singers are just so high. And I would just like to give them a shout out for being as
Good sports.
courageous and good sports, and
Very
for
much.
putting the amount of love and effort into this that they are. And at the soonest point that we can stop making this demand of them, out with it, because it's a lot.
But you're so right, Joseph. I mean, everybody has been such an incredible sport at rehearsal, and so happy again, and to serve the piece, and to be on stage, and to work, and to. Oh. So, what's different? I think COVID has also taught us all that nothing is really can be taken for granted, and so there is a gratitude in rehearsal in the room. There's a general sense of gratitude and appreciation. There was a common, so blasé, gotta go to rehearsal, like I do that all the time. But every single artist in the heart is its place is on stage and in a rehearsal, and we love what we're doing, and we would, we our identity is so intertwined with what we do that it was a mask also to not show so much that it matters. That blasé attitude, it's a mask, and we all know that behind the mask there's so much love and so much desire to do well. And so I think the mask has fallen a tiny not that, you know what I'm talking about, mask fallen, right?
Not the
Yeah, the masks
N95.
are fallen, not those masks, but so there's a little bit more of transparency and vulnerability. Also, the artists are a little more, and we had conversation around the table about insecurities and about the muscle, the rehearsal muscle not being practiced a little bit. So, and that was at one of the 2 weeks in the process, we sat with the actors, the singers, and we discussed the fact that it's okay to feel a little weird. It's totally okay to feel weird. I feel weird too. We all feel weird. So let's just embrace it and make the best. So those conversations have been very rare in the past. To just say, hey, we human beings that are trying our best right now, and with all the skills that we work so hard to acquire. So that has been positive, I would say.
Well, we could not be more excited to see this piece when it opens up on Saturday. Everyone, please go to mnopera.org, call the box office, get your tickets, because this is one that you are not going to want to miss. And Maria and Joseph, we are honored. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope to see you both again in the future. And everyone else, stay tuned. We will be right back.